Welcome to Rash's World, where you will hear prominent voices, psychoanalysts, psychologists, therapists, philosophers, and thought leaders talk about a variety of mental health concerns and problems, including how to deal with anxiety, depression, and chronic conditions, and how to become more resilient, find inner peace, be emotionally engaged in your personal and professional life, and just be your beautiful, authentic self. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rash's World. Today we have a special guest. We have Dr. Tiffanie Tate here. How are you doing, Dr. Tiffanie?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm doing really good. So my first question is the toughest, and I'd like to see how you're going to respond to that. Very curious. How would you briefly describe yourself to our audience here? What would you say?
I would call myself a multi-hyphenate. And if you don't know what that is a person who breaks the box because a lot of people like to put people in a box. And I consider myself a box breaker. I don't want to be categorized.
That's my definition too. So that's wonderful. So I have you as a physician, an author, a playwright, a radio personality, and so on. So, and more, and much more.
Mhm.
But today we'd like to talk about your book, Perfectly Perfect, to start off with that. So, what is that about? What would you like to tell us about it?
Yes, that is this book right here, Perfectly Perfect. And basically, it is a book about self-image. And it is the story of three friends, and it takes their journey from beginning to end. And it is a rhythmic story about the girls as they go to school one day. And a lot of times we don't really think about our children once they go to school. And a lot of parents, they are busy themselves. And once they drop their kids off and pick them up, they're like, hey, what happened? Okay, yeah, yeah. And they're not really paying attention. They're like thinking about their own day. And
Yeah, just to say they spent a lot of time at school, like
Mhm.
hours, right? And I know the answer to my son. Like, how was school? Good. What do you guys do? Nothing special. And that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah, you get like short answers, but there's a lot more going on. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I wanted to write a book to really foster those relationships, foster those friendships, because right now, children are impacted by social media. They're impacted by their friends. They're impacted by commercials. They're impacted by video games. And a lot of times we don't really realize the imprint that it has on children. And so I wanted to write a book to help foster these issues and help cultivate this and address this. Because if you look at the research, children are affected by this. And as early as preschool and elementary school, 30 to 50% of children are affected by these ideals and they struggle with self-image. So a lot of times before they leave elementary school, they have issues and they've had to deal with these things.
hmm And I think self-image has always been a problem, but right now it's much worse. And I think we can really look at social media that is
Mhm.
making it so much worse. And again, looks, appearance comes to the foreground more so
Mhm.
than other qualities that are very important too. I mean, it's not all about looks.
Oh, it really is. And so when you start evaluating how do we communicate silently, even as parents, I know I've been guilty of it saying, oh my goodness, I need to go on a diet. And so we don't even realize what we say in front of our children because they really are little sponges and they absorb everything we say and they repeat it back within themselves and to their fellow classmates. And so I wanted to write something that would help encourage and uplift because my goal has been to make the world better one book at a time.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things I've noticed some time ago when I was watching the Dog Whisperer with Cesar Millan, and how he would not really work with the dogs. he'd work more with the owners of the dogs.
Mhm.
And so, like you're saying, we're role models, but sometimes we also give off the wrong information, the wrong narrative, the wrong messages, and that we have to be very aware of how we are communicating, as you say, and what we're doing and what we're saying in front of our kids.
Absolutely. And when we are interacting with them, it's amazing at how well that they can grow and transform. And when you look at the perfectionism as a trap and as a public health crisis, we can say, okay, how can we stop, take a beat, and fix this as an issue before it becomes a problem? And we can address it to make sure that healthy children become healthy teens, become healthy adults.
But that goes back to again what I'm saying because we are struggling from it too as adults.
Mhm.
So that's our trap as well, the perfect trap. So I think like maybe awareness is really important that we realize, okay, these are our failings. Let's make sure that we don't pass them on.
Absolutely. And I always say it's not a problem unless we deny it.
Mhm,
And there's a saying denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's
mhm.
something that we live with daily. And as long as we can address the issue, we can identify it and start working on it. But the problem is when we stick our head in the sand. But as long as you call a spade and you start working on it, then we can grow and we can evolve and, each one teach one so we can all read some. We can always start moving towards better. Nothing is truly perfect. And that's the thing. You are great and you are perfect as you are, but we are constantly in an evolution and we want to be streaming towards or striving towards and thriving towards growth.
Mhm. Yes. And that's the idea. When some people assume they're perfect, then it's like, no, you're not. And you don't want to be. You want to have that striving and going on. Because if you're perfect, then your life is over. Like, what else would you do? Right.
Mhm.
And the idea is really to grow and learn. And so to also make sure, and I like the title very much, Perfectly Perfect, because you're
Mhm.
talking about a perfect of worth, of being themselves. They are
Yeah,
perfect the way they are. But then that doesn't
absolutely.
mean that you stop. I mean, the growth will continue, and there are parts of yourself that are maybe not as strong, and you got to work on them. You have your failings, you have your flaws, and but it's also not to lose sight of that. We are already, we should have the self-worth. We should recognize it within ourselves, the self-worth that we have as individuals, whoever we are.
Absolutely. And a lot of times there's this misconception that you have to be this size and you have to weigh this much and you have to look this way. And that's the theme of the story because in the book, she wants to be a model. And there's this little guy who comes to sit with them. His name is Art and he's picking on her, but he's their friend. And he's like, "Hey, well, you have a pretty face, but you don't have this certain style according to the TV. But, I don't know if you can do that." And then he apologizes. And so that's where that cultivation of saying, okay, it's okay to apologize. And, we want to cultivate friendship because a lot of people have a problem saying that they are sorry. And that's something that a lot of people in our society need to learn how to do. When
Yes.
you hurt someone's feelings,
Mhm.
own up to it. In elementary school, an apology is okay when you realize that you hurt your friend. And a lot of people don't want to recognize that if you hurt someone, because words do hurt, it's okay
They
to take
do.
ownership for those words, apologize, take ownership for that, and then they go play. And it's okay to repair that and say, hey, I made a mistake or a misstep and keep pushing forward and going forward. And I think it's important to not just say, oh, no, I'm never going to talk to you again. No, you go on that side, I'm going to this side, never going to go there. No, I think it's important to learn how to cultivate those relationships, even as a child saying, oh, okay. it's okay to apologize. It's
Yeah.
okay to say something wrong, repair that relationship, and go play.
Yes,
Adults need
yes.
to learn how to do that too.
That's what my point. I think adults need this more than the kids in many ways. But
Mhm,
yeah, and it's so important to repair that because what that does is it builds trust. And I think
mhm.
trust is something that you need to earn. That one, yes, right? Self-worth is something you have, and that's fine. But trust is something it's a process, right? And then you realize who can I really trust and who can I
Mhm.
not trust in this life, now, whether kids or adults, in terms of our friendships and relationships.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the beautiful part of story writing. And like I said, I've always perfectly perfect. I wanted to write a book where when adults read the story, they can learn a lesson as they read the
Exactly.
story to the children. Because some of us really need to be reminded of
Yeah.
some of these life lessons that we may have forgotten about as we were growing up and we've
Yeah.
become a little bit away from our those elementary lessons because it's about making sure that we have healthy relationships in adulthood as well.
hmm and kids are so sensitive. I mean,
Hmm.
as adults, we become hardened sometimes, but like an offhand remark like that, a comment could really traumatize, hurt the person, and maybe even continue for years after. So I have to be really careful of like when that happens, of trying to deal with it, to repair it as well.
Hmm. Yeah. And the goal of Perfectly Perfect is to make sure children know that they don't have to earn or work for their value. They
hmm
already have it. And I think that that is key because even a lot of adults think that they have to earn their value.
hmm
And it's already intrinsic. And that's the goal. It's like, oh, are you saying that people have to be perfect? No, I'm saying that their value is intrinsic and it's not based on how they look and it's not based on something that they have to do. It's that they are already valued and they are already loved. And children should be loved, not for what they do, not for what they can give, but just for who they already are.
hmm And they should be told that, or at least shown
Yes,
it
on a
in
regular basis.
regular basis. Exactly, right? And but that's not often like parenting styles that we have because we
Mhm.
want them to succeed. The intention is good. Like we have to acknowledge that too. But then like it's not just all about the grades. Yeah, it's other things that you do. And then when you punish people for kids for bad grades and so on, it affects them. It affects their self-worth, how they see themselves too.
Yeah. And the reality is that you have to have a license to drive a car
hmm
and you have to have a license for so many things, but you don't have to have a license to be a parent.
I always say
And
that. That
yeah.
always like yeah.
Mhm. And so a lot of times books are a good way to help drive and guide a lot of parents, especially when you have young parents and first time parents. And as a physician and the mother of two healthy, wonderful, spectacular young adults, I would, I figured this is a wonderful way to help guide first time parents and even experienced parents and grandparents who might be a little bit rusty, who want to help, and even aunts and uncles and anyone and foster parents who want to help guide their nieces, their nephews, or whoever, any child through this process, because any child can be guided through this.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what you're saying is also because the times do change. So there's certain
Mhm.
things in my time were very different from now, especially with technology and social media. So we have to that take that into account. There's also the language changes. Like I asked my son for words, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? Because it's like it's wholly evolving and we have to be really going with the times. We can't stick to our past or what we knew
Mhm.
back then. They don't apply sometimes at all.
No, because social media did not exist
Exactly.
back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, we had commercials,
Yeah, I remember
and
those.
even the style of the commercials were different. And so right now things are completely different. And nowadays, kids, they get an iPad and they're sent on their own way. And if you walk into a restaurant, a lot of times you have everybody with their own, phone,
Yes.
and they're doing their own thing. And you're like, is anybody going to talk to anybody? And so back in the day, I was like a latchkey kid. Well, now, you have iPad kids. And so
Hmm.
you even
Hmm.
have iPad adults. So I can't even be mad at anybody because a lot of times there are a lot of educational programs on those iPads. So they do have a good place in this day and age. But, I think it's important to make sure that we use it in a way that's going to benefit children. Like one of my books, Little Engine Mia Sings, is also an audiobook, and it's done really well
Hmm.
with children with autism. And so I think we need to be careful with how we implement technology and to make sure we're maximizing it so that it helps to educate our youth and not cripple our youth.
It has so much potential. Like I'm not against technology at all, but I think we have to be very careful to balance it out because I think like a lot of younger people don't have very good communication skills. I've seen that, and it's because well, most of it is just texting or using that, and like face-to-face communication is so important. So how can
Yeah.
we instill that in the kids or encourage it with them too?
I say get them involved in some community activities, whether
Mhm.
it is, I was a soccer referee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for both of my children, I had to learn, I know what offsides is, yellow cards, red cards. Tell me, I was a cheerleader in high school. I was not a sports person, but for my children, I go strong. And
Is
so
there anything you don't do or didn't do? I find that very
And
fascinating. That's
so,
awesome.
yeah, trust me, I did it because I do things out of necessity,
Sure.
but I would say get them involved in something, whether it's baseball, basketball, soccer, or even community stuff. My daughter was a Girl Scout. My son was a Boy Scout. So get them involved in some type of community activity with other children. Get them outside with the kids on the block, or get them involved in community church activities. I think it's important for kids to be involved with other kids
Yes.
um, in person because that is good. Get them involved in a local book club, even if it's at your house or at a neighbor's house. I think that is the key. And just having them come together because that in-person activity is good. Have them play freeze tag in the street. I remember going outside,
Mhm, I
playing
remember
outside
that.
till the street lights came on. And that was growing up, in the 70s
Yes.
and 80s. And just having kids together is a good thing. I think COVID set us back for a little bit, but
Mhm.
right now we can have it again with that community atmosphere. Take them to the park and just let them play on the playground with some other kids. Let them meet some people. And if you don't know how, you can have an adult play date while they have a kids play date. Say, okay, we're going to meet two people today.
Mhm.
And whoever meets somebody will get, we'll go to the supermarket and pick out one treat.
Mhm.
Incentivize it. And I think it's important because that's what my books talk about. It talks about interacting, whether it's in elementary school, you can do it at church, you can do it in the community. I think it's about talking to other people, but you want your children to have some social skills. And I think that's very important.
Social skills, yes. And so you're rewriting it here for our age, right? So your idea of
Mhm,
self-worth in our age and so on. And I think like obviously there are issues, especially with girls too. But I think boys suffer a lot too in our current times,
mhm.
like especially what's going on around them. So what are some things that you kind of messages you give to both of them in your books? And I want to talk about specific books that you've written too. So I find that each of them are also fascinating. But specifically for boys, what kind of message do you give to them?
Oh, well, I think my books are unisex, even though
Awesome.
this one is perfectly perfect. Like there's art who's in this one.
Mhm.
Money Matters, like stars three boys, but it's talking about money, and money is
Mhm.
universal. Everybody spends money.
Right. And it's
But
good to
yeah,
teach them about it because sometimes I'm not sure, my son knows the value of money. And
yeah,
yeah.
money. It talks about saving, tithing, and investing, and it's about three brothers who are on the way home from the park, and they find $100 and they run home saying, Mom, look what we found. And they're
Yeah.
like, she asked them, what do they want to do with it? And they're like, candy, we want candy. And she's like, let's figure out what else we can do with this. And she gives them a lesson on some of the things that they can do. And all my stories are rhythmic based to keep the kids enticed and excited about it because I think that kids love to be entertained, but I think it's
For sure.
important to have them entertained as well as educated at the same time. And
And
so,
they don't often get that at school. I've seen like lessons where I think I'd be bored out of my mind in those
mm,
classes, right? And I'm an instructor, so I know like it's really on the educator to try to make it interesting. Even something like math, as you say, this sounds like fun, and we can do it. We have to really adjust some of our style to work with them, especially kids.
and it's funny because I had one of my medical school classmates read my book, Money Matters, and she
Mhm.
said, You know what, Tiffany? I never understood the rule of 72 until I read your book, Money Matters. So, like, they say, what age group is your book geared for? I said, I think it's ageless because I had an adult read it and said she found it fascinating and educational for her. So while I gear it towards the youth, it's good for adults as well. Like I
Yeah,
said, and
perfect. Yeah.
she has no children, so she brought it just to read it and support me, and she was like, "I love it." And so,
Yeah.
I think when you look at the books, and even my book, Bad Touching, even though the story focuses on two girls who were dealing with their mom. Who brought home a boyfriend, I have had a young boy read the book. And after reading the book, he disclosed being abused inappropriately. And so while the story is about two young girls, it doesn't matter. The message gets put out there because it's just two students who attend an assembly and learn who to report to. And it's important because a lot of people are like, well, they should feel comfortable telling it in the home. But the problem is a lot of times when people report abuse in the home, people in the home are like, no, we don't want to tell anybody. And they're like, keep it in the home and we're going to keep it a secret. And then it continues to happen in the home. And so that's why it's
That's
important to tell a teacher, tell a pastor, tell somebody outside the home so that you can have it addressed. So when it comes to inappropriate touching for that child to have a safe space, they often sometimes need to tell someone outside the home so they can feel protected and safe. So when you look at some of these different books that I've written, whether it's Money Matters, Perfectly Perfect, and Little Engine Mia Sings
mhm.
is about trains. So
Yeah.
that's definitely universal. And
Okay.
that's the one that's also an audiobook. And so a
Nice.
lot of, that's definitely universal, and it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl. And that's,
Mhm, mhm,
it's a fun book. And
mhm.
so and it's anti-bullying. And so when it comes down to teaching children how to come together and stand up and speak out on behalf of their classmates who are not being treated right by a fellow classmate, whether it's a boy or a girl, it's a phenomenal book to help support one another. And so I'm focused on making healthy young children to become healthy older children and healthy adults.
Yeah, and it opens up the discussion, right? Because they see it, and then you have a question, and then you ask, like, what about this? Because the thing is, like, growing up in any family, you take everything that happens in your family as normal. And it's only like years after, it's like, wait a minute, this was odd. Like, what we do is that other families don't do it, but you
Mhm.
assume they eat the same food, they have the same traditions, and so on. But each family is unique. It gets worrisome when they're unique in a bad way, right? And that's why this is very important to let them know, no, this is not okay. This is okay. This is not okay. That difference is very important too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think even if like some people I've noticed parents have said, well, I don't know if I want to talk about that touching
Yeah.
book. And I said, well, it's okay. You can buy it and put it on the nightstand. And if the child is old enough to read, let them read it. And then they can come to you with questions. And it just opens the door.
Right. Yeah, yes, exactly. It opens the door. I think that's hugely important. And so as we're looking at here, your worth, and that includes not just the kids, the adults too, isn't something you earn. I think that's my message for everyone out there.
Hmm.
And that's your message here with this particular book, Perfectly Perfect.
Absolutely, perfectly perfect. My most recent book, and it's focused on making sure that children know that they are loved and they don't have to earn it, and no matter what, they don't have to succumb to the pressures within social media, within video games, and from their peers.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Tiffanie Tate. You're many things: physician, author, playwright, radio personality, soccer referee as well. Thank you so much for being on Arash's World. Such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.